unmute Sonia. Okay, Sonia. Okay, so Sonia, where are you originally from?
Well, I'm originally from Tijuana, Baja California. I was born in Mexico, and my parents are both from Mexico. My mom is from Mazatlan, Sinaloa, and my dad is from Irapuato, Guanajuato. And my parents met in Tijuana, and that's where I was born. And then they came up to San Jose, and I was born and raised in San Jose.
Cool. And then I know your parents owned a very popular restaurant in town.
Yeah, so when I was 10 years old, my mom acquired a restaurant. And before that, my grandmother had a restaurant. It was called Josie's Cafe on South First Street and Willow, which is now Trini's Cafe. And my grandmother had a restaurant, so my mom learned her way in the kitchen there. And then they had this opportunity in 1971 to acquire a restaurant that used to be a hamburger joint. And my mom started working along with my dad, who worked as a carpenter, but then joined her in the afternoons. And they both created a new Mexican restaurant in 1971 when there weren't a lot of restaurants like there are now. So Mexican food was relatively new to a lot of people.
And what was the name of the restaurant?
The name was Mexico City because my dad, originally from Irapuato, Guanajuato, was raised in Mexico City. So he loved Mexico City. That's what it was called, Mexico City Restaurant. At first it was called Taco Bar because that was just a general name that people called it. But then it became Mexico City Restaurant.
Because you were down the street from the burger bar.
Yeah, I guess so. Burger bar, taco bar, that's how it went.
Yeah.
So at Mexico City, I learned my way in the kitchen at a very young age. We used to go there after school and help my mom work. And so I was in the kitchen growing up all those years, and then forever in the kitchen still. So that's my story. And in the restaurant at Mexico City, we used to have 3 salsas. We used to have a green hot sauce. That's what we called it. We didn't call it green salsa. We called it green hot sauce, red hot sauce, and mild salsa, or mild hot sauce. And that's how the customers knew how to identify their favorite salsa. And my favorite, well, they're all good, but my favorite is the green salsa, the Salsa Verde.
And what else are gonna? So what do you do now?
So now I work in education. I work with English language learners in middle school. And I love to work with students of diverse backgrounds because it's so fun to learn about their cultures. And I think that food unites everyone. And so I'm such a big foodie that I think my passion, first of all, is food, and my other passion is education. And so I combine the two with working with my students because we often do cooking lessons, or we talk about our cultures regarding food, and we have all these great connections. And we discover that we are not all so different like we think we are, but we have a lot more in common through food.
So Sonia is actually a trained pastry chef. And how did you decide you wanted to be a trained pastry chef coming from Mexican food? Because you learned French pastry, correct?
Well, I learned Mexican food, and then I always loved to bake. Since I was a little kid, I always tried baking. And when I went to college, I went for education, and then I kept working at the restaurant. And then I decided, well, maybe I want to go for, a profession in culinary arts. And so then I went to get my degree in management, what is it called? Hospitality management. And then I got a job as a pastry chef at a social club. And after college for culinary management, I went to a special pastry school in San Francisco called Tante Marie. And that's where I learned pastry work. And then I got a job as a pastry chef.
At the Capitol Club, right?
at the Capital Club, Silicon Valley Capital Club. I was the executive pastry chef there. I trained under a very mature chef, Chef Co, and he really took me under his wing and taught me how to do mass volume, desserts and creme brulee and cheesecakes and all that. And it's very grueling, hard work, but it's very satisfying work. So whoever's in the food industry, hats off to you, because it's really, really hard work. You're on your feet all the time. You're lifting heavy equipment and working super hard, long hours, always on holidays. And, but it's very satisfying work.
So how did you decide to be a pastry chef from Mexican food?
Oh, well, I always liked baking. And so then when I went to pastry school and got done with pastry school, I started my own business, and it was called Sonia's Sweets. And my brother at that time had a restaurant where I was using his kitchen. And that restaurant was called the Hard Work Cafe. And so I was able to, in his kitchen, create special order cakes, wedding cakes, and all kinds of specialized desserts. And I was doing what I really love, and that's my passion, is baking. And I also did some intern work at a bakery in Saratoga called Marjolaine French Pastries. And so I got my first initial training in French pastries there at that bakery. And after that bakery, I went to pastry school.
So then if you guys have any questions too, you can throw them in the chat box. So my natural question is, if your passion is for baking, why are you making salsa verde today?
Yes, we're making salsa verde because when Darlene asked me if I would do a cooking lesson, I said, well, something simple and easy to do. And I thought of salsa verde because I make salsa verde all the time. It's something that I always have in the refrigerator as a condiment. And it's something that everyone can do. And you'll see that it's such a great condiment that you can put on basically everything. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Okay, so we're going to go ahead, and you have your lovely daughter is the camera person.
Yes.
Turn around the camera, unless she has her keep on. She's
No,
like, no.
No, she just, right now she is not camera ready.
Camera ready. Okay. All right. So we'll go ahead. You could go ahead and start, Sonia.
Okay. So we're making salsa verde, which means green hot sauce. And first, I'll show you the main ingredients we have, which is tomatillos. And this is, some stores sell tomatillos in a package, and some stores have them loose. So you can buy them by the pound or by the package. And they come, it's the size of a cherry tomato, maybe a little bit bigger sometimes. And it has a papery husk that needs to be removed, and it attaches at the stem. You just snap it off. It has like a sticky residue on the tomatillo that needs to be rinsed off before you cook them. And so also, this is the main ingredient, tomatillo, for salsa verde, for chile verde, which is a green sauce in some Mexican foods, such as chile verde, stewed pork, or you can make it with chicken. Also, green enchiladas are made with the base of this tomatillo salsa. And another variety of tomatillos is this one. And I wanted to show you this one. It's basically the same thing, but small. And this one is called Tomatillo Milperro. Milperro means from the crop. And these grow wild very easily. If you were to just put your organic matter in the garden, these would come up.
So you just plant the entire tomato in the ground?
Well, yeah, when you have, leftover stuff and from the kitchen organic scraps, you throw them out in your garden and they grow into little bushes. The reason that these are not so popular, they're really good tasting because they're more work, because it takes, 3 of these to make one of this. And so you have to peel it, you have to rinse it, and then you have to cook it or grill it. But these have a sweeter flavor because they're smaller, I think. Sometimes they're purplish and they're dark green. Sometimes they have striations of color, but it's basically the same fruit. Next, we have the jalapenos. And nowadays, jalapenos are giant. and they're not so hot. So the way to prepare a jalapeno is you just snap the stem off like this. And we're going to use about 3 for our recipe. And you just snap the stem off, rinse them, and then you put them in your pot ready for the salsa. And then we have onion. You can use yellow onion or white onion. I'm going to use a white onion, and I'll show you just a quick knife skill to chop onions. You just peel the stems off. You cut the first layer out. I'm going to not assume that everybody knows everything, and that's how I teach the middle schoolers basic skills, because these are not only just basic skills in the kitchen, these are life skills. So after we have an onion peeled, ready to go, cut it in half. I like to take the stem off because this is a little hard sometimes. So now you want to curl your fingers under. You want to take the chef's knife, and you're going to guide the knife and hitting your knuckles, and you're going to curl your fingertips under. And you're going to go not all the way to the end. You leave the back of the onion attached, and you just cut small slices down. Not all the way, leaving the back attached. And then you're going to turn the onion. Again, you're going to curl your fingers under. You're going to take your chef's knife and then just slide down. And then you have your onion as small or as big as you like. In this case, we're going to make them pretty small because it's not nice to bite into salsa and have a big chunk of onion. And I think about half of an onion is about half a cup, depending on the size of the onion. And as you can see, it's finely chopped. Oh, you know what I forgot to do? I forgot to go this way. So when you slice the onion like this, and then you slice it this way, and then you slice down. So that's a big, I forgot to do. But still, this way you get little pieces too, but not so diced. When you go back and chop onion, that's when you start to cry, because you're cutting into the onion that's releasing all these little particles that make your eyes water. So that's why it's good to use this technique for onion. That way you cry less when you chop the onion. In this case, I'm going to just chop a little bit more because I forgot to chop it the other way, how I wanted to show you. I just have my knives sharpened. So it's really important to work with sharpened knives.
So how do you keep from crying again when you're chopping an onion? Because I cry every time I chop an onion.
Oh, well, it's good to wear glasses first, protect your eyes. In the recipe, it calls for half a cup. So yeah, we got a little more than a half a cup of onion here. But really it's to taste. So to chop an onion and not cry so much, have a sharp knife. Have a super sharp knife. Cut as less as you can. So you want to go all the way down, but not to the end. And what I do in the kitchen to make dinner and have a lot of prep done beforehand, if you cook every day or every other day, you can just do this. So I cut it this way, and then you cut a few slices horizontally, and then you're going to slice down. And that's when you get this really nice dice. And that's how you get a really fine dice. And then you keep these in containers with a tight lid in the refrigerator so that you can have diced onions ready to go when you're cooking rice or huevos rancheros or huevos a la mexicana, and you just take out your diced onion and you're ready to go. You don't have to chop every day. So it's really important to have sharp knives. It's more dangerous to work with knives that are not sharp. And I would always use a chef's knife in this for this job. Okay. So now we rinse the tomatillos and get them ready. This is what we're gonna do. So you have to clean the tomatillos, and you just peel them like I had shown you before. I'm not gonna clean every single one, but I'm just gonna show you how easily this papery husk comes off. Then you just rinse them. And then you would put them in your pot, your sauce pot. These are already cleaned. And you take your jalapenos, you put them in the pot. Then you take a garlic clove. And what I like to do with my garlic is I like to break up a head of garlic. I have a jar. I put it away in the freezer, not peeled. And when you take it out of the freezer, they peel pretty easy. The peel just snaps off. But these I've had out for a little bit, but when they're frozen, the peel just comes right off. And then you can put it in your, whatever you're cooking easily. And they never grow roots if you keep them in the freezer. So you could always have them ready to go, like fresh garlic cloves. Then you fill the pot with water, just to cover everything. You don't have to add anything else. It's just tomatillo, jalapeno, and your garlic cloves, just to cover. Put it on the stove. And I like to put it on high and get a rolling boil going. And that's going to take about 10 minutes. So to do the magic of TV cooking, I have had this boiling and jalapenos and my garlic is in there. Bring it, the blender, take the blender cup, and we're gonna put our cooked tomatillos and the jalapenos with using a slotted spoon. Sometimes they fall apart, but that's okay.
So if any of you have questions, okay, so for, one
There's
question.
my garlic clove.
How much do you know, how do you know how much to use of each item, is Lizzo's asking.
Okay, it's about a pound and a half of tomatillos, and on the jalapenos, if they're not hot, you can cut one and smell it, and if it smells really spicy, they're hot. And if they smell like a bell pepper, you can use 3 or 4, and it'll barely be a little bit hot. And just 1 or 2 cloves of garlic. I've listed it in the recipe. You do not have to add any of the cooking liquid to the blender because the tomatillos are saucy and they were going to provide the liquid that we need. Now, if you have a high-powered blender, you only need to pulse it a few times. Even in a regular blender, you don't have to blend it too much. And for green salsa, I like to have mine a little bit chunky. So all I'm going to do is turn it on and off. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, and you just blend it, and it blends very easily. So now you would put this in a bowl. So that you can mix in your onion and your cilantro that's chopped, that you just stir in. And you could, you know, to get every bit of the salsa in here, you can just add a little bit of water from the cooking liquid. And with that, you rinse your blender cup like this. So you get every little bit of it. Pour it back into your salsa.
So she's saying, Crystal asks, is some people add chicken stock or nor to their
Well, in this case, we're making salsa to go on cooked food. So when you add those ingredients that you just mentioned, that would be for a cooked salsa such as chile verde or something else where you're going to make that into a sauce with food. I don't add that to mine. I only add salt. And I add about a teaspoon. You can add any kind of salt. I use Himalayan pink salt. And I'm going to add the chopped onion. And then I'm going to add cilantro. And let me show you.
Hold on, Sonia, hold on, because I muted you. Okay,
now I'm talking about the cilantro.
Okay.
That when you buy cilantro, you want to keep it in a glass of water and treat it as if they were fresh flowers because they are a living plant. And you want to just, you know, all of cilantro is edible. So you don't, when you're making chile verde or another kind of food, you don't want to waste all the stems. So I usually just take the very bottoms of the stems off. This has already been washed. And so I just cut it like this. You kind of want to roll it a little bit.
That's a good tip.
And then you just, you again, curl your fingertips under and you hold the knife to your very knuckles. And you want to cut it as fine as you can. And a lot of times you would rinse it and it would be all wet, you know, and it's kind of harder to cut wet cilantro. And if you wanted to use cilantro as a garnish, it would be all clumpy and wet together. So I'm going to show you a trick that we do in the commercial kitchens. We can do it with parsley and cilantro. So this is probably more than half a cup.
So iPhone, because they don't have their name, is asking, how does it differ from making chile verde, like you were talking about earlier?
Well, chile verde has a lot more ingredients. It has a combination of peppers, it has a ton of onion. You have to stew the sauce for a long, long time. That's how we did it at the restaurant. Our chile verde would take 2 days to make because the sauce, you make the sauce one day and let it cook for a long time. The onion cooks for a very long time until it becomes like invisible. It becomes a sauce, the base of the sauce. So that's how it differs. So when you want to, suppose this is really wet cilantro and we want to use it as garnish and we want it to be dry and flaky, then we put it in a paper towel, roll it up. And you don't have to use a paper towel, but you could actually use a kitchen towel, which works better. And then you just dry it like this. And if you had a cloth paper towel, you could actually wring it. like this. And then you have really dry cilantro that you can put in a little dish, and then you can use as garnish. Like, this is a good way to do cilantro for a taco bar when you're having carnita tacos and you have the cilantro and the cebolla, and then you have the cilantro that's flaky and it's not all clumped together. So we're gonna measure out like half a cup. And it's basically like half of a bunch of cilantro is about half a cup. Then we add it to the rest of the ingredients. And then you have to taste it to see if it's good on salt. And if you need to add more salt, you can. And that's basically how you make green salsa.
So can you talk a little bit more about cilantro? How come some people hate cilantro? Because they say they get that soapy taste, and other people love cilantro.
Well, I think it's a matter of preference. You know, cilantro adds a freshness to every food, I think. It's like parsley. It has a distinct flavor, and it makes everything better, I think. You don't have to add cilantro. You can just make green salsa even without onion and without cilantro.
Like, for people that don't, is there a substitute for cilantro?
I don't think so. I don't think so. No, if you don't like cilantro, just eliminate it.
So I love cilantro too. But when people say they don't like the taste and it tastes soapy, there's actually a chemical reason. There's a certain thing that people have where the cilantro in reality does not taste good to them. They're not just picky. So there's a chemical difference.
Oh, I didn't. Okay.
Yeah. So, but I luckily do not have that issue. So I do like cilantro.
Okay, so now we got to taste, see if it's good on salt. And it seems like the jalapenos were not hot, but they are. But it's okay. By tomorrow, it'll be less hot. I think it needs a little more salt.
So I think it's so important what Sonia's saying about tasting your food, because I noticed that when I have given cooking classes, people don't taste their food. They just go by the recipe. And like Sonia was saying, the tomatoes, the jalapenos, all your onions, all your fresh ingredients always have different flavors depending on what season it is, how the crop grew, everything. And so you have to taste your food and adjust it.
Okay. Now it's perfect. And it's actually warm, so you can put it on food right now, or you can refrigerate it. And the way I like to save my salsa is in a jar.
So yeah, I buy jars at the Dollar Tree. And I put salsa in it. I squeeze my lemons. I get lemons from my neighbor and squeeze the lemon juice. I have lemon juice in my refrigerator. So I like buy those little glass jars. You can use canning jars or just get them at like Dollar Tree with the screw-on lids. They're great to have in your refrigerator.
Or you can just save your jars from your peanut butter, wash them really well. And I like this one because it's pretty big. And then I just save my salsa in here.
So I'm going to unmute everybody. If anybody has any additional questions, feel free to pipe in if you want to ask any other questions. Oh, and somebody from the very beginning asked if you would do another demo on pastries, since that is your specialty, or on a baked item.
Okay, I could. So this is how I save my salsa, and this will keep in the refrigerator about at least a week. I would say 7 to 10 days. It's pretty hard party. And don't worry when you put this in the refrigerator and you take it out the next day, it's kind of set up like a gel. The natural pectin in the tomatillos act as a gel because of the high level of pectin. But when you'll just break it up and it'll be back to normal. When it comes to room temperature, a little bit warmer, it's fine. It's liquidy like this. And so this is your final product.
Awesome. It looks good.
Yep. And you can serve that on tacos, enchiladas, burritos, anything.
Okay. So what will be your next recipe, Sonia?
My God. Well, the person who asked about something pastry, let me know what you're interested in.
If you guys could type in the chat if there's a bakery item or something that you would like to see her do a demo on.
Something basic.
I'm just like reeling her in now. So
maybe like cookies or
Napoleon. Somebody said a Napoleon.
Well, a Napoleon isn't too hard to do if you use store-bought pastry.
Creme brulee is a good one. Actually, it would be cool to do a creme brulee and a flan so people could see the difference. Do you make creme brulee in a water bath too, like flan?
Yes.
Oh, you do?
It's really nice when you have a commercial kitchen with an oven that has a convection oven and a steam feature. Then you don't have to mess with the water. You just put it on the steam feature, and steam comes out of the oven and cooks the creme brulee perfectly.
People in their natural home environment.
I know.
I've made flan in my regular oven with a water bath.
Yes, flan, you can do that, and creme brulee is just the same. The difference between creme brulee and flan is that creme brulee is the French name and flan is the Mexican name. There's a variation in the ratio of ingredients, but it's basically the same ingredients, almost the same ingredients. Creme brulee has cream, flan has milk.
You can save it for your presentation because we'll probably have you do
I'm just telling you, that's almost the same thing. So if you can make flan at home, you can probably I'm sure you can make creme brulee at home too.
Yeah, and somebody else said popovers. It would be cool to do empanadas or turnovers or something too. That would be cool. Like a sweet and savory one. That would be cool.
Someone said pastry cream too.
Oh, pastry cream?
Oh, pastry cream, yeah.
Oh, pastry cream's a good food to have under your belt because it's so versatile to do a lot of desserts with pastry cream.
Okay, cool. So if everybody, thank you guys for coming.
All right.
We're going to wrap it up.
Thank you for logging on and watching my first cooking demo.
Hey, you did fabulous, Sonia. Very good. Everybody
Thank
loves
you.
you.
Thank you.
And so we will record this and then post it at some point. Thank you, everybody, for coming. And there will be another one next week. I forgot who is coming next week, but there is another class that will be happening next week. So jump in then and we will see you then. Bye, everybody.
Darlene, make sure everybody gets the recipe.
Yes, I posted the recipe on the Facebook page. And so just go back to the Facebook page to look at that. Thank you, everybody. Okay, bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.